The regular meeting of the Mishawaka Common Council for Monday, February 17th, 2025 will please come to order. Good evening. Those of you who are in attendance, we're happy to see you. If you would, please take a moment to check your cell phone to make sure that you have placed it on silent or vibrate. And for those of you who are participating remotely, we welcome you as well. Members of the public are asked to place their microphone on mute during the meeting with the exception of any public hearing. At the appropriate point in the meeting, I will invite the public to unmute their microphone for purposes of submitting such comments as they may wish to make, one person at a time. All persons wishing to make public comments will be asked to first state their name and address for the record, and after completing the comment, members of the public are once again asked to place their microphone on mute, and we thank all of you for your cooperation with us this evening. With that, if you would, please join us in rising for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Hazen?
Here.
Mrs. Volker? Mr. Carroll?
Here.
Mr. Benicki?
Here.
Mr. Emmons?
Yes.
Ms. Hahn?
Here.
Mr. Mammolenti?
Here.
Mr. Violi?
Here.
Mr. Hixenbaugh?
Here. The record will reflect that in light of Mr. Mammolenti's participation remotely, there will be all roll call votes this evening. Approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of February 3rd, 2025. Are there any additions or corrections? And hearing none, the minutes will stand approved as received from the clerk's office. Petitions, communications, remonstrance, and memorial.
Yes, Mr. President. We have a letter from the Board of Zoning Appeals regarding their recommendations from their February 11th, 2025 meeting. Honorable members, a regular meeting of the Mishawaka Board of Zoning Appeals was held on the above referenced date, at which time the following use variance was considered. Appeal number 2025-01, an appeal submitted by MJ Investments, LLC, requesting a use variance for 1015 West Edison, Mishawaka, Indiana, to allow for a tattoo studio. The board, with a vote of 4-0, recommended a favorable recommendation, and this is signed by Donna Burkhart, Administrative Planner.
Thank you. This evening, we have no report of any special committee, nor any ordinances on first reading, so we'll move into resolutions.
Resolution R 2025-03, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana, establishing a revolving fund pursuant to Indiana Code 5-1-14-14, authorizing a downtown forgivable loan program under such revolving fund and certain related matters.
Thank you. We will now open the public hearing on proposed resolution 2025-03. Anyone wishing to speak in favor, please come forward to the podium.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the council, Ken Prince. I'm the Director of Planning and Community Development for the city. I'm pleased to present a program for you tonight that we think will have a profound positive impact on the downtown. As you recall, and as we were really directed, we went through a process as part of our comprehensive plan update of asking the council, our appointed boards, our elected officials, all about what the priorities are, should be for the city moving forward. And the two highest ranked answers were improvements into the historic downtown in Mishawaka. And based on that, we prepared, we previously had a forgivable, not a forgivable loan, a loan program, a low interest loan program in the city that has not been used for about 10 years. And the reason for that was the interest rate that was charged at that time was not appreciably different than what you could get at a bank. So there was really no advantage of working through the city at that point in time. The last one, I believe, was given to the Trackside Tavern, which is now Oliva's, and that goes back, I believe, at least a dozen years for that improvement that happened. Moving forward, to create the loan program, this was new to me, we reached out to our special counsel for the Redevelopment Commission regarding guidance on how it should be structured, and what they recommended is that it would be done through EDIT funds rather than through TIF funds. So there's different regulations per state statute on how you can fund programs. And the creation of a loan program that, or a forgivable loan program that would have been through TIF would require another community development corporation to be created, another board to oversee it. And we thought the simpler way to handle the loan program would be to create a program that mimicked what happened during COVID when we created a low interest or a zero interest loan program to address businesses that were struggling at the time and to provide assistance. In fact, the funding for the initial round of loans that we are requesting is the $500,000 that was used at that time for the COVID loan program. If you recall, we used TIF, we refunded TIF into EDIT, and that those EDIT funds were then used to provide the funding for the loan program. Well, those funds have been repaid, and now we have those funds available for this program. Since this program is forgivable and not going to come back, this would mean that it's finite unless we would find future funding for the program in the future. I can see Mr. President, I'm rambling a little bit, so I will go on and I'll be more finite in my presentation. Essentially, to summarize the program a little more succinctly, it's broken down into 3 areas. We have what I would call the historic downtown blocks. There are 4 blocks to the east of City Hall, to the north of City Hall, to the south of City Hall, and then the First Source block. Those blocks will be treated differently than the rest of the C3 zone property, which is a significant area in the downtown. And we've also included now a small area of the West End. Our feedback that we received at the December 17th Redevelopment Commission meeting identified a desire to include a portion of that area. So we're including a small portion of that area, predominantly the commercial businesses where West End Bakery is, going back to the intersection where St. Bavo is. Those businesses on either side of 7th Street would be included into the program. Regarding the details of the program, this would be a matching fund grant for forgivable loan up to $50,000 for hardscape construction with a minimum of a $5,000 project for those funds. The general goal of the program is to reduce commercial blight, despair, create distinctive character, sense of place improvements, honor and promote existing outstanding and notable historic structures, increase commercial activity, increase the diversity of residential housing units, promote unique individual local stores, promote restaurants, eateries, coffee shops, and other things that it provides something to do. In terms of the program, there are characteristics of the program. One of the things that we talked about at the December 17th meeting was that the program had to be oriented to direct the funding. We can't have the funding just open to everything. We had to define the characteristics that we were looking for and then to look to put money into those characteristics specifically. So one of the first things we did was identify the areas that are excluded from receiving the grant forgivable loan funding. So if properties have received TIF funds in the last 15 years, they would be excluded. If they received tax abatement in the last 15 years, they would be excluded. The primary reason is they've already received the incentive from the city, and we're not going to duplicate that. We would only provide it to commercial buildings or commercial buildings with first floor commercial and upper level residential uses. We have significant numbers of properties that are solely residential in the downtown. We did not want to provide those. Properties that are owned by government entities, quasi-government entities receiving tax dollars, not-for-profit entities, religious institutions are all excluded from receiving funding. We did, after the December 17th meeting, add language that provides loans for material only that are less than $2,000 for those specific entities if the improvements are requested by the city as part of the implementation of a larger streetscape initiative. And I use the example of, let's say we have a program that we want everyone to put up some decorative lighting, that this would provide us the ability that an entity like using the food pantry as an example, we could provide the lighting for them as part of the loan program because they didn't ask for it, right? We're asking for it, and this doesn't require then any out-of-pocket expense, and they could participate in the program. So that was the reason for adding that language following that meeting. Grants would be limited by property parcel, not by address. So if you can imagine, you have a larger commercial building downtown, you might have a lower level commercial business or two at a specific parcel, as well as upper level residential uses. The loans would be limited to one loan per parcel based on the time periods that are given. That way, one building doesn't get four individual $50,000 loans and eat up all the funds in the program. We're trying to distribute it to make the most impact. Project types that are excluded from the forgivable loan program would be things, we tried to keep the funding away from things that I would call deferred maintenance, or things that are consistently changing. So things like signage, painting, except as part of a complete facade change, HVAC or water replacement, again, as part of, except where it's a significant renovation. I would use the example of you have an older business and their water heater goes out, they wouldn't be coming to us for funding for replacing that water heater. Whereas if you're converting an empty space on a second floor and you're putting in water heaters, as part of that, potentially that renovation cost could be included in the forgivable loan program. So that's the distinction that we wanted to make as part of the program. Similar to that, no wiring or electrical, no roofing, repair of canopies, repair of rotting wood, tuck pointing masonry, all those things. We did not want to pay for deferred maintenance out of the program, and that's the reason for including that language. So as it would work, it would be an application process through the Redevelopment Commission. The Redevelopment Commission would have a little bit of discretionary authority, but specifically we've written it so there's not a lot of discretion involved. And I used the example on December 17th. You have a Mexican restaurant that wants to locate. It's not up to the Redevelopment Commission to determine, well, we have enough Mexican restaurants. We don't need another Mexican restaurant. That is not the purpose of it. In that case example, I use the example of a grease separator that they're applying for funding for that grease separator. All they're looking at is to determine is a grease separator included in the program or not included in the program, and then they would act on it accordingly. Another aspect of the program is that no city funding would be provided for projects until the end of the project. So how it would work was a potential applicant would apply to the Redevelopment Commission. The Redevelopment Commission would approve the request that would initiate the loan, but no payment would be received until all the improvements are complete. What this does is it doesn't put the city in the middle of making sure that the improvements are completed, and we're also not looking for collections if we provided funding up front and those improvements were never completed. We would then be looking to obtain those funds back, and this eliminates that provision or that possibility. So the term of the loan varies based on the time it takes to complete the improvements. So it could be a matter of months, it could be a matter of a year to do improvements on its structure, particularly when you think of the cost of window replacement and custom windows and the ordering or the rehab that might be provided. A key point in that would be that, let's say a loan happens and they only complete half the improvements. We very specifically state in the program they would not receive funding, and they need to know that going up up front, that if they initiate a project and they only complete it halfway, they're given a period of time and then a grace period. But if they don't meet that grace period, we will then cancel that forgivable loan, and they will not receive the funding on the other end. So it's very, puts the onus onto the applicant to complete the project to receive the designated funding. And lastly, the only thing that we requested is that the loans are limited only to the property owners. The property owners, obviously, if you have a tenant, we have numerous restaurants downtown where it's a rental situation. We love those restaurants. We would love to see them apply, but those applications have to be worked through the owner of the property to ensure that those funds are used appropriately, because ultimately the property owner is the one responsible for the building itself. Other limitations, I talked about the amount. If work is going to be hired out, they would have to be providing multiple quotes. We didn't want anything to protect the city's investment. We wanted to make sure that the process was competitive. They didn't get one quote, and that quote was astronomical, so it puts the onus on the applicant to provide multiple quotes. If work is being performed by the owner, the only thing eligible for reimbursement are the material costs. So again, we're not paying the owner for their own labor and doing a project. It would be limited only to the cost of the materials. Another element would be if it's a restaurant, cafe, bar, or entertainment venue, they must be willing to sign the application committing to the municipal riverfront development project area liquor license eligibility requirements, which specifically require no smoking and closing at 1 a.m. because nothing good seems to happen after 1 a.m. and we wanted them to all to follow those same restrictions. So again, any owner that has an existing establishment that goes beyond that, they are welcome to continue that. We don't have a problem with that. But what we have a problem with is putting money into a venue, and I used Smith's downtown as an example of an establishment where we had trouble, particularly very late at night when they would let out, and we repeatedly had incidents that required police attention. We do not want to encourage that as part of the loan program. So with that, I'll just give the summary. This will cover use changes, fire suppression and building code, life improvements, life safety improvements, exterior facade improvements, window replacement and restoration for upper floors, grease interceptors for new restaurants, and grease interceptor upgrades for existing restaurants. I'm not reading the match amounts, but there are different match amounts based on the location. So for example, it's harder to replace a grease interceptor financially when you're doing it to an existing restaurant, so the reimbursement rates are actually higher for an existing restaurants for that replacement than it is for a new restaurant. But the new restaurant would be at 50%, and in the historic core outstanding notable area, that would be 75%. We would look to cover the cost. Again, because that's the benefit to the city of keeping that grease out of our system, which is already being generated by the restaurant. Interior remodels for the restaurants, permanent outside seating and streetscape landscaping, new permanent facade lighting, new decorative facade lighting, murals and publicly displayed art. One thing that the South Bend did very well, they partnered with a group of mural artists, and all they had to do was provide the paint, and the mural artists did a number of those murals that you see in downtown South Bend. So again, that goes back to the $2,000 provision where we would be willing to provide the materials for those, for a variety of establishments by covering the cost. 100% of the material cost could be covered by the city for that type of project. So that's identified in here as well. And then storefront window enhancements are also included. So I tried to cut it short, Mr. President, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Prince? Ms. Hahn?
Prince?
Yes.
You can talk as long as you want about this subject. This is my favorite subject, as most people know. Can you just elaborate a little further on, you've said match a few times. Does that mean the individual business owner has to come with their own 5,000 before they ask for 5,000? Can you just elaborate a little bit?
Correct.
on match?
So using I'll just pull a random one here. So grease interceptor for new restaurants is a 50%. So let's say the grease interceptor costs $30,000. One, they would have to front the $30,000 up front.
Correct.
And they could potentially be reimbursed $15,000 of that $30,000 based on that 50% match.
My second question is, do you have a designated person within your office or who's working within this to go over the applications and to grant the application to kind of facilitate the process?
We currently do not. As you're aware, being on the council funded an additional position in the department specifically to be able to do that work. We did go through an advertising process and have not found anyone suitable that met the job requirements. So we did do a number of interviews, and they were great people, but they just weren't the right fit for the program. So our hope now is to hire somebody, a recent college grad, and so we're working with HR to post at Ball State and IU, and to try in May when people are looking to graduate, that we're hopeful that we can catch a recent college grad to take the position. So.
And like you, I'll try to limit my questions because like I said, I could talk about this forever. So I'll just ask one more question. Once you get that person in place and the applications start flowing, how long do you think this application process is going to be from the time they fill it out to the time they get approved? Are we talking 90 days, 60 days, a year?
So the issue is likely going to be the completeness of the application. So my guess is there'll be people that come in that don't have, for example, the multiple quotes needed to obtain, but if they have all the information in place, the redevelopment commission meets once a month, and I would imagine it would be less than 30 days based on a complete application to know if they have approval or don't have approval.
And the last thing I'll just say, thank you for including the West End.
I was directed by many elected officials, including Mayor Wood, on that, so I do know how to listen. I think so anyway.
Thank you. Other questions for Mr. Prince? Ken, my joking comments in the pre-meeting aside, well done in terms of your presentation, and perhaps more importantly, with regard to this proposed resolution and the underlying document. I suspect that you'd agree with me that we already make a significant number of direct and indirect investments in downtown Mishawaka and other areas of Mishawaka, but I don't think that as our finances allow us to, we can do too much to try to make the core of our downtown area everything that it can be, and it's important to all of us. So I appreciate the work that you did with this. You must have done something right, because there were at least 4 lawyers that I'm aware of who looked at this document, and none of us had any substantive changes to suggest. But I also appreciate the fact that from the time that this concept was first discussed, it's evolved, and there have been changes made, not only as a result of that meeting and the inclusion of the West End, I agree was a great suggestion, and I appreciate you and Mayor Wood taking that to heart, but also the other changes that you've made as this has gone along. So I'm really excited to see how this plays out as we move forward. But again, I appreciate the work that you and Mayor Wood and everybody else did to bring us to this point.
Thank you. And I did fail to mention that we think this is going to take a few years. Obviously, max of $50,000 if there were 10 projects immediately to fill it up. But we think it's going to take some time for somebody to come up with a project, get the quotes, get it submitted. So our thought is this funding will likely last a few years. So just putting that out there. We've been contacted by a few downtown business owners, but there's still significant, hopefully, opportunity for funds and different opportunities as they come available.
And that's a fair point.
Right.
Personally, I'd view it as a problem of success if things.
If it goes quickly, correct,
If it goes
yes.
quickly and it's beyond our, that wouldn't be a bad thing at the end of the day. But again, thank you
Right.
for the work that you and everyone else has done on this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Prince? Mr. Violi?
I did want to follow up on that. So is this something we could renew in a couple of years, or right now it's just this set, 500,000 for now, and then we'll see how that goes? And
So the challenge is going to be to come up with the funding. So definitively, you would have the opportunity, but it's going to be playing against, and because these are EDIT funds, it's playing against what we use to fund fire trucks and police cars and many other infrastructure needs. We just had the opportunity, because of the way the COVID loan program was funded, to make that switch.
so it won't be reoccurring because of those reasons.
Well, again, if it's incredibly successful, that would be the council's prerogative to fund. But that'll be, let's see how successful the program is and then place the priority accordingly.
And it's just going to be first come, first serve?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Prince? Again, Ken, thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor of the proposed resolution? Please come forward.
Mr. President, council members, Dave Wood, Mayor, here to speak in support of this resolution. The work on this has really gone back several years, at least as far as the conceptual thinking and the exploring of what other communities are doing, and the research involved has gone on for quite a while. We knew that there was a need based on the fact that this impacts people and in big ways as far as building investment. All of a sudden they run into a roadblock, and then they let us know that, gosh, we didn't anticipate this. As our downtown grows, continues to thrive, we have the newer developer, big developer sections, and we always thought that the downtown would be a great opportunity for more of the homegrown businesses to start, more of the mom and pop shops in the older buildings where they might be a little bit more affordable.
So just to give you an example of how this does impact individuals, a young couple from the area, strong roots here, saw an opportunity to buy the Skylar Rose building, bought it, and had some thoughts about what they might want to do, some interest in what, from some people who might want to rent that. And then all of a sudden, well, gosh, it's an old building and we have to bring it up to modern code. And then now all of a sudden we need to do things like fire escape, restoration or replacement, or fire suppression within the building, or grease traps. And these things can cost tens of thousands of dollars. And so that right there is a barrier to entry. And so we wanted to not only capitalize on some of the excitement, but also to promote our existing historic downtown, save some of these old buildings and bring them into a condition where they can serve in a modern kind of way with the current needs of our downtown. And so we believe it to be the biggest program of its type in the state. We've looked at others that aren't quite as big as this. But it's very much tailor-made to the needs of Mishawaka, in particular, the historic part of the downtown and the West End. And so for that, I would like to do a big shout out to Ken Prince, because he really has been thorough on this, as he is on everything, but just did an outstanding job of putting together all of the details for this. Our hope is that it succeeds wildly, that investment occurs in some of these older buildings, and from that we see the need to, maybe we need to expand this, fund a new level, or even expand it into other older areas of the town. So this is something that we can adapt on the, hopefully over time, but very, very excited about it, and hopefully it's well received, and so encourage your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mayor Wood?
I'm just curious, do you guys have any plans of letting us know quarterly, what kind of interest you guys have? I'm just very interested in it too. I'm really excited about this plan.
Yeah,
so.
I can't imagine we'd have any problem early. It's going to take a while, I think, to catch on, but once it does, we'll certainly update you. And this will, again, be approved through the Redevelopment Commission, for which you can see,
That's true.
That's all I was going to say, was that every agenda before, when a loan is initiated, it has to go through the Redevelopment Commission. You'll see it before it's approved.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. Other questions for Mayor Wood? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor? If you would, please come forward. Then is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone with us this evening who wishes to speak in opposition? Please come forward. And is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in opposition? Are there any council members who wish to speak? If not, then I call for the question.
Question.
Madam Clerk, would you please poll the council?
Mrs. Hazen,
Yes,
Mr. Carroll,
Yes.
Mr. Benicki,
Yes.
Mr. Emmons,
Yes.
Ms. Hahn,
Yes.
Mr. Mamalenti,
Yes.
Mr. Violi,
Yes.
Mr. Hicksonbaugh.
Yes.
The resolution passes 8-0. Resolution R 2025-04, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana, approving a petition of the Mishawaka Board of Zoning Appeals for the property located at 1015 West Edison Road, Mishawaka, Indiana. This is a use variance to allow tattooing at 1015 West Edison Road.
Thank you. With that, we will open the public hearing on proposed resolution 2025-04. Anyone wishing to speak in favor, if you would, please come forward to the podium.
Hi, Mr. President, Council. My name is Haley Corpel. My address is 1255 Amelia Street, apartment 1010, Granger, Indiana, 46530. I have owned the Body Art Gallery in Town and Country for the past 19 and a half years, and I am looking to relocate my business to 1015 West Edison Road. Yeah, that's about it.
Thank you. Any questions from the council? Ms. Hahn?
Congratulations on 19 years of running a small business. That's
Thank you.
awesome.
Thank you.
And I'm familiar with where you're at and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
So in your new location, are you going to expand any of your services? Is it going to be very similar to what you're doing now?
So as of right now, I don't want to really make this the issue, but I'm being forced out in a sort of a way. So I've gotten the opportunity, I suppose, to rent this new building, which is significantly bigger than what I have. So I grew into the business that I have now, and I just have intentions of growing into an even bigger business. So there may be things that I bring in along the way, but as for right now, it's just going to be the same business in a new location.
Well, I'm sure you'll do well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? Then not so much a question, but a comment. As I mentioned in the pre-meeting, I am fortunate enough that I was here in 2006 when we approved your use variance the first time. I haven't heard anything in the intervening years to lead me to believe that that was a bad decision, and I'm happy that you're interested in continuing to be located in Mishawaka, so I wish you well.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anything else? Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor? If you would, please come forward. And is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone with us this evening who wishes to speak in opposition? Please come forward. And is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in opposition? Are there any council members who wish to speak? If not, then I call the question. Madam Clerk, would you please poll the council?
Mrs. Hazen?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Benicki?
Yes.
Mr. Emmons?
Yes.
Ms. Hahn?
Yes.
Mr. Mamalenti?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Mr. Hixenbaugh?
Yes.
Resolution passes 8-0. Resolution R 2025-05, Civil City Property Lease for Option to Purchase 400 block of East 10th Street. A resolution of the Common Council of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana, authorizing the City of Mishawaka Redevelopment Commission to lease with option to purchase municipally owned property in accordance with the City of Mishawaka Municipal Code, Chapter 2, Article 5, Division 3, Section 2-492 and 493.
Thank you. With that, we will open the public hearing on proposed resolution 2025-05. Anyone wishing to speak in favor, if you would, please come forward.
Good evening, John Rogeman, Corporation Counsel for the city. Request your approval on this lease. It's been a little bit of a trip to get this all done, but we're at the stage where now we're ready. Basically, we're leasing a portion of property that's where Central Services is. It's an unused piece of ground there, and the library wishes to use it to build some storage units, as you probably read. The lease is with an option to purchase. The original term is 10 years, but it can be renewed as well. If they don't want to purchase it, they can renew it again. With us today, we also have members, Dick Curry, the attorney for the library board, as well as representatives from the library that will be able to talk as well. I want to thank them for their patience and efforts on working through this project. Also Ken Prince as well, who's behind everything in the city. So we're requesting your approval, and then it's already been approved by the library board. And then after, hopefully, we get your approval, then it will go to the redevelopment commission next week for final approval.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Rogeman? Thank you for your work
Thank
on this,
you.
John. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor, please come forward.
Thank you. I got beat by my corporation counsel up here. I was going to, Dave Woodmere, here to again urge you to support this. I was going to give you a little bit of the historic context of where this came from. Discussions on this have been ongoing for years now. They began many years ago when we were looking at the time to create a funding source dedicated for the 911 Communication Center. And in doing so, it required a little bit of a tax restructure throughout the county. Everybody had to take a little bit of a pay cut, including the library, who graciously supported that and in recognition of the critical services that our 911 Communication Center provides. And so we got to talking about how we might partner and listen to their needs. At the time, it was for kind of an attractive shed and where could, or garage, and where could that be close to the library itself downtown. And so we had bought some property, as you know of, back, gosh, in the early 2000 teens. That was the former Scott Brass property. And we converted that into our central services facility, motor pool, gas, car wash, all of that. It came with a residual piece of property along 10th Street. And if you're familiar with the Stein Auto Repair, it's immediately to the east of that. And so we own it, we mow it, we wanted a good use for it. We didn't have a particular need for it, but we wanted a good use for it that most importantly fit in with the neighborhood. And so we brainstormed that and how then the operations, the needs of the library could fit in with our needs, such as security and access and all of that. So we've worked through, I believe, all of those details, and now we're here for the final votes. But I would encourage you to support this in recognition of the good partners that we have at the library. And again, this got started when we were looking to come up with a new funding source for the 911 Communication Center. So,
Thank you. Any questions for Mayor Wood? Thank you, sir.
all right, thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor, if you would, please come forward.
Mr. President, members of the council, Ken Prince, Director of Planning and Community Development. I just want to talk a little bit about the process. So this evening, the resolution before you only authorizes the sale or lease. The actual lease agreement would be approved by the Redevelopment Commission next week. I would also point out that we wanted, in terms of progress, and you probably read in the agreement, that once it is approved by the Redevelopment Commission, it's already been approved by the Library Board, the property does need to be rezoned to I-1 light industrial. So that would occur, chicken or the egg, what comes first? We wanted this to happen first before we would submit that for rezoning. So that is to come. So just as we bring things forward, we wanted to make sure that you were aware of that. As the mayor said, we think it's a great transitional use, very low intensity. The concept of it being brought into the central services facility, very much like School City, uses the gas pumps. They would come in through the main gate. It would be re-fenced off while still providing us continual access to 10th Street if we need it. So happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Prince? Mr. Violi?
I'm just confused. Is it on the corner of 4th or 10th and Union?
No.
No, okay.
No, so there's a fence business, then an auto repair business, then a driveway that goes back to central services that is gated and is not typically used. And then there's an empty lot, and then there's the housing authority property.
Okay, I got you. Okay. that's
This is
right.
the vacant lot.
I got you. Yep, thank you. Thank you.
Other questions? Mrs. Hazen?
So I understand right now it's R1 and then it's got to be rezoned. So at that point, do you guys notify the neighbors and the
Yes.
neighborhood at that point, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Emmons?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Prince, what type of building is this? Just going to be a block building or?
Yes, it's just going to be a metal storage building. So,
Okay.
but again, it matches, I mean, that's exactly what the auto repair business is. That's exactly what central services is located. And the nice part about this, Councilman Emmons, is the intensity of the use. So with central services, you think of the salt trucks and the fueling, how often the library will be accessing this and using it for storage. is a very minute activity relative to the neighborhood. Also, think about the access. Even though we're keeping the drive to 10th Street, they're going to be accessing it through our main drive off of 8th Street. So that intersection is going to be where they're going to be taking access and coming into the property. So it literally will generate no traffic off of 10th Street with this use compared to any other use that it might be used for in the future.
The reason I ask is because you said they would build something that would complement the area. That's why I was asking what type of building would be going up. And
Right.
You figure a building, a room building would be complementary to the
Well,
district?
Mr. Krumkowski from DLZ, I hate to throw him under the bus, but he is the designer of the building and is here, and I'm sure can better answer any questions you might have on the design of the building.
Thank you, Mr. Prince.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Prince? Mrs.
Sorry.
Hazen.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but that drive, I mean, I don't think it's ever used or very
Rarely,
rarely used.
correct.
And by them putting up this building, it's not going to be opened up and used anymore. They're going to come in off of Union, correct? Or eight?
That's correct. But
Yeah,
again, just
okay.
from a safety standpoint, having multiple accesses, and if anything would ever block the main entrance to Union
Right.
Street, we want the ability to get out, so it's important to keep the access from an emergency access standpoint. But no, we do not typically use it and don't anticipate using it following the construction of this building.
Thank you.
Anything else for Mr. Prince? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor? If you would, please come forward.
Mr. Hicksonbaum, members of the council, I'm Dick Curry, attorney for the Mishawaka Penn Harris Library Board of Trustees, and also here to be able to offer additional information, our library senior leadership, Donna Meeks, Dina Wargo, and our project architect with at DLZ, Steve Krumkowski. I'd like to thank Mr. Rogeman, Mayor Wood, and Mr. Prince for covering 95% of what I was planning on saying to you. So my remarks are going to be fairly brief. To Mr. Emmons, to respond to one of your questions, this will be landscape. That's a part of the plans that need to be approved before construction can begin. And there is a rendering as Exhibit B to the proposed lease, which I think all of you have received. The primary purpose for this is to provide storage for the additional storage for the library, particularly a new bookmobile that's been ordered and is in the process of being constructed for delivery later this year so that we can serve housebound members, housebound patrons of the library. The lease is for 10 years, initial term is for 10 years with 4 10-year renewal options, during any of which the library can exercise its option to purchase. At the end of the first 10-year period, the city also has the option to force the library into a purchase, at which time we would need to have it replatted, or not replatted, minor subdivision, because it is 2 lots and a portion of another. And I think that's about all that I had on my sheet to cover that hasn't already been covered by the city representatives. Do you have any questions for me or for the library?
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Curry? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor? If you would, please come forward.
I'll be very brief. I'm Donna Meeks, I'm the library director. But I didn't want to let this opportunity pass without thanking you all, because this has been years, and from the Board of Trustees to every staff member, we're so excited because you all gave us $50,000 toward this bookmobile, and it has been purchased, and now we need a place to park it. But I just want to say, this is going to change lives. We have identified several of the underserved areas. Not everyone can get to the library, but everyone needs books. And so this is going to allow us to hit those low-income families that don't come in, as well as our senior centers. It's going to allow them to actually have a library card, and instead of just being dropped a box of books, they're going to be able to actually shop. And so I'm just saying this is life-changing, and I just want you all to know that and say thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Meeks?
No.
Not a question, but I just, to echo Mayor Wood's comments, I recall having multiple conversations with you about the adjustment to the option income tax, and you were very diplomatic in your advocacy on behalf of the library. So I was happy when we were able to partner with you out of our ARPA funding for the bookmobile, and I'm also pleased that we're now able to partner with you in a different way. So thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor? Please come forward. Then is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone in attendance this evening who is anti-library and wants to speak in opposition to the proposed resolution? And is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in opposition? Are there any council members who wish to speak? If not, then I call for the question.
Question.
Madam Clerk, would you please poll the council?
Mrs. Hazen.
Yes.
Mr. Carroll.
Yes.
Mr. Benicki.
Yes.
Mr. Emmons.
Yes.
Ms. Hahn.
Yes.
Mr. Mamalenti.
Yes.
Mr. Violi.
Yes.
Mr. Hixenbaugh.
Yes.
Resolution passes 8-0.
This evening, we have no ordinances on second reading, so we'll move into privilege of the floor. At this time, members of the public are invited to the podium to speak with respect to non-agenda items only under privilege of the floor. Seeing no one, is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak under privilege of the floor? Thank you. With that, we'll move into unfinished business, of which there is none. New business.
We have the appointment to the Mishawaka Fire Merit Commission.
Thank you. At this time, the chair would entertain a motion to postpone indefinitely the making of our appointment to the Mishawaka Fire Merit Commission.
So moved?
Second.
Thank you. A motion has been made and seconded to postpone indefinitely our appointment to the Mishawaka Fire Merit Commission. Any additional questions or comments? Then hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you please poll the council on the motion to postpone indefinitely?
Mrs. Hazen.
Yes.
Mr. Carroll.
Yes.
Mr. Benicki.
Yes.
Mr. Emmons.
Yes.
Ms. Hahn.
Yes.
Mr. Mamalenti.
Yes.
Mr. Violi.
Yes.
Mr. Hixenbaugh.
Yes.
The motion passes 8-0. We also have the acceptance of conflict of interest forms, if you would like me to read.
The names.
We have forms from the following: Woody Emmons, Matt Carroll, Luann Hazen, Tony Violi, Greg Hixenbaugh, and Matt Mamalenti.
Thank you. At this time, the chair would entertain a motion to accept the conflict of interest forms for those council members whose names were just read by the clerk.
So moved? Second?
Thank you. A motion has been made and seconded to acknowledge the acceptance of the conflict of interest forms for various council members. Any additional questions or comments? Then hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you please poll the council?
Mrs. Hazen?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Benicki?
Yes.
Mr. Emmons?
Yes.
Ms. Hahn?
Yes.
Mr. Mamalenti?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Mr. Hixenbaugh?
Yes.
The motion passes 8-0.
Thank you. Is there any other new business to come before the council? Mr. Evans?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a reminder that the First District will hold their monthly meeting this coming Thursday at St. Babel's at 7 o'clock. We'll be having the Youth Service Bureau there, represented by Christina McGovern, and she'll be explaining the services that they offer and that. So it should be an interesting meeting, so we invite everybody to be there. And again, as usual, we'll have refreshments from the West End Bakery. So hopefully we see everybody there. If you have any questions, you can get in touch with me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Other new business?
Yes, Mr. President.
Mr. Mamalenti?
Thank you very much. Just a brief reminder that the neighborhood Twin Branch Neighborhood Watch meeting will take place this Wednesday, the 19th at 7 o'clock at the fire station number 4 off of Harrison Road. Our guest speaker will be Alan Groziak from the Historical Preservation. He'll be talking about its roles and responsibilities. All citizens are welcome. the 19th, this Wednesday at 7 o'clock at Fire Station number 4. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other new business to come before the council? If not, a motion to adjourn would be in order.
So move.
We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.